Hi, I'm Suki. Welcome to Getting Psychic, where you can listen to me use myself to test the theory that anyone can get psychic. Hello and welcome to Getting Psychic. I'm your host Suki and I'm back after an extended pause. I just wanted to share the friendly reminder that if you're moving through your life, moving through your relationships and your job and your obligations and your goals and your aspirations, thinking that any piece of those things isn't completely intertwined with the healing path that your higher self and your soul has set up for yourself, you got another thing coming. Oh my God. So I haven't recorded in weeks and weeks, I guess, because I had to come to the true and profound recognition that if we are doing things that don't align with what we are manifesting or intending to manifest for ourselves, or I think that probably all of us have this set of non-negotiable expectations that we're working towards. And I've been acknowledging lately that the things that could stand in the way of what we're putting all of our energy into manifesting are either going to interrupt our manifestations, which I could talk about later, or be kind of squeezed out. So, for example, I have been, for as long as I can remember, my main thing that I want and desire is freedom. Freedom physically, freedom emotionally, freedom financially. And I started to realize recently all of the things that were interfering with my manifestation of freedom started screaming at me. And I'm not saying that recording this podcast is an interruption of my manifestation of freedom, because it's certainly not. It's an extension of another very important part of my plan that I laid out for healing, which is about self-acceptance, and then whatever the word for actually believing that anyone else could accept you, whatever that is. I have to think of a word for that, but that's something that I have definitely been on a path to heal. But anyway, I digress. I knew that there were so many things that I had on all of my plates that something was going to have to budge for a minute. And I was like, hell no, it can't be the podcast, because that gives me life force energy. Like, it makes me so happy. And it's weird because it doesn't involve any feedback. I mean, I know that you exist, but it's an extremely quiet audience, and that's fine, but that's obviously not the point for me. The point of doing this isn't for acceptance or acknowledgement. The point of doing this is a healing practice in itself. I'm not sure what it's connected to, but there's got to be some form of throat chakra healing happening, right? But it's also kind of like a diary. Like, there's a place for me to come satisfy my intense curiosity and ask people questions that nobody else wants to ask for some reason. And then I get to come sometimes and update you on my psychic process. I can't think of anything more fun or even therapeutic than that. It also helps me because I have ongoing notes and I wouldn't remember so many things that are evolving in my relationship with non-physical reality if I didn't have you to share this with. So, thank you. Okay, so I guess the reason why I started the podcast that way today is because in saying, if you think that every single thing that happens in every single second of your life isn't a part of your healing, then you're bananas. I started that way because since I started this podcast, and it's almost been like next month, it will have been 3 years. And which is crazy because one, I'm no longer just intuitive. I have like this constant conversation with my higher self and probably a bunch of other unidentified entities, but whatever. You know, I receive information all the time. I can talk to animals. So it really does go to show that if you put energy into something, it will be returned. And anyone can make a habit of accessing their guidance or non-physical reality just like I did. You don't even have to start a podcast. I would say just take notes. I think that's the most important thing, and the only reason I take notes is because of the podcast. So that's my recommendation. If you're like actually trying to get more psychic, you can at least see how psychic you're becoming if you maintain awareness of your path. So I gotta take my snow pants off. Please hold. This really sucks here in Chicago. I gotta move. Okay, so here's what's been happening. And I don't know, like everything that happens in your life is a metaphor for something more important, right? Like Sparrow for Everyone, my hair care company, isn't a company, it is a tool. And it is a tool to heal the piece of me that doesn't believe that other people can accept me. It is a tool to heal the piece of me that built, or the part of me that built a force field around my heart. And I have mastered, I think, I have done a really good job with learning self-acceptance. And that was my first hurdle. And I thought like, oh, okay, cool. I can honestly say that I love myself, which is pretty fucking great. And I thought that that was it. That was the end of the line for that. We're never done healing. And right behind I love myself is this thing that's more like, can I believe that other people could possibly love me? And that's where I get stuck. And it's like, whoa, it's not simple. It is not cute. It is not a conversation away from healing. And so when I say that this company is just a tool for healing, I mean that in the sense that every single thing we do and every single relationship that we set up for ourselves, our careers and our marriages and our friendships and our interactions, are just vehicles to learn what we set out to learn. And it seems pretty simple if someone's saying to you like, "Oh, yeah, are you repeating a pattern? You're going to repeat this pattern in relationships until you heal it. You're being shown this because it's something that needs to heal." But when you sort of zoom out and look at the big stories of your life, like, just it's easy to just take your career. Like, look at your whole entire career top to bottom. What did you set out to learn from that? It might take a minute to to peel it back and figure it out. And once you do, you might quit. That wouldn't surprise me at all once you start looking at what you choose to do through the lens of healing. But so I've had this company for 12 years, and I've always told myself, well, it's because I don't believe that the way that my industry does things is okay. I think it's bullshit that everything's plastic and perfume and poison, and it doesn't have to be this way. And even though I have to work really, really, really hard and take huge risks as one individual trying to do it differently, I'm going to do it because that's how much I care. And although that can be true, the real truth is I set this up so that I could evolve with self acceptance. I don't know if it was because of severe bullying and where I think like women can't love me. I don't know if it's, and I've never uttered these words before this week. And I think like that is part of healing, is just saying like, you know what? I think that I feel this way. I don't know if it's because I this is a new one that came up recently. Like, I don't know if it's because I was born to my mother and I witnessed her as such a beautiful, powerful soul kind of make herself smaller than we all know that she is, so that she could fit into the container of my family and my chaotic household. It's probably some combination of all sorts of things, and including but not limited to past life shit. The physical pain that's coming up in my heart as I have the um, good fortune to process this shit is palpable. And just this very day, as I'm fully coming into the realization that the things that I set up for myself are healing modalities, I just like sent out a mass email to my wholesale clients, and I was like hit with this heart pain. Like my heart chakra was aching, and I'm getting the message. Call a friend that you trust and tell them. Call a friend and ask for healing. And I'm like, okay, I don't have to do all of this by myself. And I called a friend and said it in the most open way that I knew how. And obviously, you know that I'm really open. But the weird thing is that my ability to be open and just say everything. I don't know how this works, but there is an element of it that is like a part of guardedness. So to be truly vulnerable for me isn't exactly sharing everything. It's it's something more. I don't know if you can relate to that. I don't exactly know how it works, but I think sometimes that just saying everything sort of like preempts judgment. Because it's like, well, you can't, you don't have to worry about what's seeing behind the curtain because I'm just going to open the curtain and here it is. But there's always more underneath, like my newly discovered hidden fear that that people can't actually accept me. So, anyway, the company. And obviously, I'm saying all of this because I really want you to reflect on how, one, you're interrupting your own manifestations, and two, how and where this plays out in your life. So, I've had this company for 12 years, and if you look at, say, my social media, which I hate to use as like a metaphor for any life, but I'm just going to because it exists in our present reality. So if you look at Instagram or TikTok or whatever, I don't exist in this company until about, let's see, I don't know, like this year, a few months ago. And now my face is all over it. And I want to be very clear that this is not a story of showing yourself on social media, because with any luck, that shit will be obsolete within 5 years at most. This is not a show yourself, be present, like get out there. You have to make content. That's not this. This is in whatever format you have at your disposal, are you letting yourself exist or not? And I was not, because of that unwitnessed and deep seated fear of judgment. I was like, look at these beautiful things that I created, except for there was no I. It was just a company without a tether. And that like worked okay, but not well enough to sustain anything that it needed to. Like if this was, if right now was like the end of the story for this company, I would just close it. So let me zoom out a little bit so I can make sense of the big picture. And it is something like, okay, this is not the thing that everyone is meant to learn. There are companies that can have an amorphous, mysterious founder and do really great, because what that individual intended to learn in this life was just something else. But because I have realized what my lesson is, this is critical and specific to me. This isn't a general announcement that's like, be visible. Because you don't have to. I don't care. This is not what everyone needs to heal. It's more just like a formal inquiry into, oh, what is mine for me? And I'd be curious to see what everyone comes up with, because probably very few are going to be alike. And then in terms of interrupting our own manifestations, okay? So I have been overdoing it with my endeavors and my companies and or with my endeavors and my goals, to the point where I was like, "Oh wow, I thought that I knew what busy was, and now I actually do know what busy is." Cuz I'm like spinning out and there's no time. There was no time for exercise. There was no time for socializing. I got to the point where I just didn't want to, because I was so uh one track mind obsessed with what I was trying to pull off. But guess what happened? The moment came where I got the message, "Oh, you're interrupting what you're trying to manifest, dude. You're trying to manifest freedom, yet you're completely unfree." And I was like, "Oh shit. I actually need to make space and stop and calm down." And I can recognize that, yes, we all will, in our pursuit of what we want to achieve, need to go through parts of extreme effort. But I was setting myself up to just never stop. And so I implore you to look at this on a moment to moment daily scale. When you're making decisions, if you're very clear about what you are manifesting, it's easier. But once you get clear on what you intend for yourself, if you are ever at a crossroads, you have to pick the choice that aligns with the freedom. You have to pick the choice that aligns with the money. You have to pick the choice that aligns with the rest, or you're just standing in your own way. Maybe that seems really simple and obvious, but once it hits in a moment when it really needs to, when you're fucking it up, then it becomes like one of those dreams where you wake up and you like figure out all of existence and you're like, "Oh, I get it." And then you're like, moments later, you're like, "Wait, what was it that I understood about the makeup and the fabric of reality?" Hopefully it's not that short-lived, but you catch what I'm saying. Like, what if it hits you right, it can change everything. Okay, so that's my rant about what we're doing, how we're healing, and how nothing is meaningless. Everything that happens in every choice, I am increasingly more I am increasingly more certain that every single thing that happens carries meaning for the bigger picture, and the bigger picture being the experience that we set out for ourselves and the healing that we hope to acquire in this life. Moving on. So these notes are so old that I've been taking since the last episode. Like, I don't even recognize what I said in some of them. So when you take notes about your psychic development, take good notes, because you're not going to remember what you're talking about. um, All right, so I have these notes here on this one Dr. Joe Dispenza meditation that I was doing that like is funny because it's kind of culmination of everything I just talked about. So I'm doing this meditation in the bathtub, and it's from a set of meditations that's called changing the habit of being yourself or something like that, which automatically puts me on the defense because I have put probably all of my healing energy in my life to believing that I am okay. And so if he's like calling upon me to say that there are things that need to change, I'm like, damn it, there's a resistance. So this is hilarious, but this is what happened. So I'm doing the meditation, and he's like, now, and if you've done his meditations, you know it's kind of like an echoey voice that is like you have to kind of get over. And he's like, now ask of yourself what part of you, whatever. I can't remember what it was, like something that you want to leave behind or that you're getting wrong in some way. And I start feeling this resistance, and I'm like, oh shit, I don't want to do this. I don't want to do this. And I don't know if you've ever been in a meditation where you're like, oh, this isn't hitting. I'm going to get out. I'm going to get out. No, don't get out. Stay here. Yeah, I can't decide. So I pause the meditation. And this is somewhat ridiculous, but I know you all do it. I pause it on like a repeating number. So it was like 22, 22. And I was like, oh shit. Okay. Well, that means one of two things. Either it's a validation or I'm supposed to go back in. And how am I going to figure out which one of those is true? The only way to do it is to go back in. So I go back in and I start doing the meditation, and it goes crazy. So, what came through for me once I just released the resistance to this concept was what I want to change is believing that success is in the future as opposed to now. And so I started saying, I'm here, I'm already here. And that came as kind of like a channeled thing. Like I was like, once I released myself to accepting this meditation, it was like, this is something that you need to change, dummy. You think that success is in the future, but that's interrupting what you're intending to manifest. And so I started saying, I'm here, I'm already here. And that's where sort of the point at which I used to focus to follow through this meditation. And then weird shit started happening. I could feel a presence on my left side and a presence on my right side, like very palpably there were beings there. And I looked to my left. Okay, so oh god, whatever. This is like kind of bananas, but I was just following what I was being called to do, and that involved sort of shifting my neck back and forth like a snake in a way that I probably couldn't recreate outside of that meditation if I tried. And then I'm sort of like sticking my tongue out and breathing like Kali. Like I'm like, and moving my neck back and forth, sort of like a snake. And I'm like, why is Dr. Joe Dispenza doing this to me? And I look to my left and I breathe out like a snake. And I look to my right and I breathe out like a snake. And then I'm doing some mudra. And I'm like, there's the part of me that's in it and following direction. He's not giving me the direction, by the way. And then there's the part of me that's still me. And I'm like, what the fuck are you doing? And then it's just kind of like, just deal with it. So I'm doing it. And then if you have other spiritual friends or listen to podcasts, you're probably used to people saying stuff like, oh, and then I connected with Ganesh, and then Mother Mary was there, and we high-fived, um, and then Buddha handed me a lotus flower. Like, I'm used to hearing this kind of stuff from people, but I'm not exactly used to experiencing it in a concrete way. But then out of nowhere, during this meditation, Ganesh, with his cute little elephant head, showed up. And I was like, what is this meditation? Um, and I guess that I'm recounting this note to you as a way to acknowledge that we are still present for the most spiritual, interdimensional things that happen to us. We're just kind of like in the back seat. If you feel like you could be having like extremely spiritual experiences like this, and assuming that they're your imagination because you're still present. And I say that because I think that before I started exploring non-physical reality, I just assumed that it was a certain way, where you're like walking behind the veil and it's undeniable, and there are concrete beings interacting with you, and sometimes it is like that, but sometimes it happens in such a in a much more gentle way. And I think that it's great to be reminded of that. It is so subtle, and it involves self-trust, and that is healing, or also trust in something bigger than yourself, and that in itself is healing and will get you really far with whatever healing path that your soul decided that they were going to dive into in this life. I hope that makes a dent. But I'm also reading this book. I'm almost done with it. It's called Animal Intuition by Thea Strom. And it's probably the best animal intuition book that I have ever read, just because it feels like she's a Virgo to me. I just really love the way that she writes, the way that she addresses things that no animal communicator I've read about or heard has addressed. And she's just like very pragmatic and direct, and portrays information in a really easy to understand way. And so, one of the things that she talked about that I've never heard any animal communicator talk about is doing a reading for an animal, someone's pet, for example, and how other animals can invade. Psychics are always right. What does that note mean? Whatever. Okay, so how other animals can invade your reading. Okay. So it reminds me of this story that I never got to tell. And I was visiting my acupuncturist, Kim, who I love. And for years, she was one of my people that I could talk about weird shit with. Um, she always has prophetic dreams, and just kind of was one of those people that like grew up in a haunted house and had all the weird stories, right? So I love talking to her. And I think maybe from the podcast, or maybe I told her, she figured out, or maybe I think I told her this, or maybe it was from the podcast, but she figured out that I could talk to animals. And she was like, hey, do you want to like talk to my cat? Well, I was like, yeah, I'll do it when I come in for acupuncture. So it's actually a good format to do it when you're receiving acupuncture. But so I'm laying face down. I've got the needles in me, and I'm like, connecting with Kim's cat. And I know nothing about the cat. And, cute things happened. Like, the first thing he showed me was a racetrack. And I was like, oh, okay. And like all these cute identifiers that then she came into the room. And I was like, okay. And I've learned to just say everything except for I held back, and I'll explain why. I was like, okay, so he showed me a racetrack, and she's like, oh my gosh, we call him, when we first got him, we called him Speed Racer because of blah, 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 whatever. Just like cute stuff like that is always happening. And so I'm in the middle of communicating with her cat about one thing or another. And one thing that I still have yet to figure out is like yes or no answers. And I've made up my own ways to do it, but I would like some advice about like how to receive yes or no answers in a way that I don't just make up every time. But anyway, so this is an example of what you can do to yourself while you explore psychic realms. All of a sudden, I'm laying face down, talking to her cat, and out of nowhere, I see a dog, and it's like a pit bull looking dog with black or gray spots. And I'm like, instead of thinking anything else about this, I go, all of a sudden, I'm like, oh, well, obviously this dog must know that I'm in here doing animal communication, and it's probably lost in the neighborhood and it needs my help, because why else would I be seeing a dog? Kim doesn't have a dog. So I freaking tell this dog that shows up with its face in my face, hey, I think you're lost. I think what you should do is, if you see a person with a dog, approach them, and then maybe they can check your tag and help you. So this is what I do to this poor dog that's trying to communicate with me like an idiot, okay? And then Kim comes back in, and she says, thank goodness, after I tell her all the stuff about her cat, she says, do you think that there's any way, if you could find out if an animal is a reincarnation of another animal? And I was like, what do you mean? And she was like, well, I've always kind of thought that my cat was a reincarnation of my dog Valentine. And I go, oh my God, is Valentine a pit bull with black spots? And she said, yes. And I said, okay, yeah, the answer is yes. and I told her what I did to Valentine, shoot him off and dismissed him like he was a neighborhood pet, lost. And so her story is so cool. And she didn't mention this before she had me talk to the cat, but her dog Valentine, she adored, but he was a really difficult pet. And one day she was thinking, like behaviorally with other people and animals, and she was thinking, how am I going to do this? She thought to herself, I don't know how I'm going to get through their whole life. This is really hard. 2 weeks later, Valentine comes down with an incurable disease or condition. I'm sorry that I forget the details, but dies almost immediately. So within 2 or 3 weeks after she thought that, the dog was gone. And it was really, really sad, but also liberated her from the burden that she had raising the dog. And she was heartbroken, and it took her a long time to want to get another pet. But when it was time, she decided that she was going to get a cat. And when she was looking for cats forever and she was never finding the one, And when she finally came across the one that she adopted, she knew so strongly that it was her cat that she told her partner to just go pick it up. And when she got home, the cat was in the bathroom, and her partner said, Kim, you're not going to believe this. And she said, what? They go look at the cat. It's white with black spots, but they are the exact same markings. It also has a black heart on its back, which is why the dog was named Valentine. And inside of its mouth, on the roof of its mouth, it had the same heart shaped birthmark as the dog. She tells me this all after the dog invades the session. And I was just like elated because how fucking cool is that? And had never talked to anyone about experiencing that, and no one warned me that other animals can invade your readings, like even pets that are in the home. Like if you're trying to focus on one and then a different one is just more chatty, or even a deceased pet just like that can pop in. And that one was like a little bit more convenient because it was this basically a reincarnated version. But still, this woman Thea Strom explaining how common that actually is, for once I guess you open your channel to animals in that home, other animals can pop up. So you have to be really discerning and ask good questions, because I mean, doing this or any psychic work, like you don't actually know who or what you're connecting to, or at least I don't. um or doing this and doing any psychic work, it's like you're going blind into a place to connect with a cat that you've never seen or met. Um, and then if a cat shows up and starts giving you information, you kind of have to assume that it's the right one, but it's not necessarily always the case. But I just thought that was like a really fun story that I always wanted to tell, and also laugh at myself because I just instantly made up some bullshit. Oh, this is a dog in the neighborhood that needs my help. Like, what? So it was very fortunate that she then came in immediately and said, do you think that it's possible that this is a reincarnation of my dog? I'm like, yes, 100%, because here's what I saw. It also just kind of makes me think about, well, this is something I think about all the time. Talking to psychics, putting all the stock in psychics and thinking that they think that they know everything. They don't. We're just filtering information. I mean, you know this. We're all just filtering information from different dimensions through our own field of perception. Like, are you kidding me? You think that you should expect me to be 100% right all the time? No way, dude. It's like interpreting a new secret language of imagery and messages and random words. Um, so whenever you talk to a psychic, I'll remind you of this all the time, and hopefully it makes sense. Like if something doesn't click with you, you can put it in your back pocket because is it's highly possible that eventually it will. But if it doesn't and it really seems wrong, then throw it in the garbage. Who cares? We don't go to psychics to get all of the answers. And the more I learn how to be psychic, the more I realize that if I get readings from people who I interview or people who I just really love being in their energy or respect their work, it's just that. It's a time for me to focus on myself for 1 hour and just have fun. It's like a little oracle thing. Or sometimes it's not fun. Sometimes it's hard and it involves healing. But I think it's always positive. Um if you're following your gut about who you should be talking to and when. It really is just it's almost like if you treat it this way, you're paying for therapy. Anyway, that is what all of the sessions that I have are like since I've gone down this path. It's very much like a therapy session. Have you ever also noticed that anytime you find someone, especially in the spiritual world, that you super respect and look up to even, like it's pretty inevitable that you're just going to find out that they're just a normal person and they're probably sometimes more flawed than you are. Like, so I think that goes hand in hand. It's like, we don't need to look up to anyone. We don't need to have false idols. We don't need to worship anyone. I really do think that we're here to have a better communication with our higher selves than we are to learn from other flawed humans. I have this note here that says, I decided if I ever find myself looking up to someone to slap myself. Who really knows what I was processing at that moment? But I think there's something there to think about. And then my last note just says, putting myself out there is physically excruciating. And then there's a random typo. But yeah, I think that pretty much sums it up. It's like, that's a bookend right there. But that's why I'm here. And that's why I exist in my brand now. And that's part of what I came here to heal. And I would be lying if I told you that I wasn't lying on the floor crying and smoking cigarettes last Tuesday, because something serious has just been having to move through me right now. But I am better for it. And I really do think that starting to look at everything that comes as a healing has been one of the most beneficial practices that I just made up in this process. It helps me to like step towards pain, look at it, let it move through me, however disgusting it looks and feels, and then get to the other side faster than before, when I was just sort of really good at keeping everything at bay. So, I don't know. Hope that does something for you. And I hope that you are all having fun getting psychic. And I know that it's been a minute since I released an episode, but please know that I'm still plugging away and we'll get back to a regular podcast and interview schedule, because it is such an important part of my life. I just had to accept temporarily that I needed that room and time that it takes to do this. I needed to reallocate it temporarily. So I encourage you to do the same where necessary. And thank you so much for listening. Bye. Thanks so much for listening. We hope you enjoyed today's conversation as much as we did. Be sure to subscribe and follow us wherever you get your podcasts so that you never miss a new episode. If you liked today's episode, please consider leaving a review to help the other psychics find their way here.